Welcome everyone. We have already recognized the concept of community organization, where we basically stressed the fact that community organizers or public health practitioners work with community members to address societal issues. These societal issues can be issues to do with social injustice, can be issues to do with poverty, can be issues to do with making sure that community members have access to social services, access to clean water, access to healthcare services, and addressing problems such as gender-based violence and many other social problems. Now, as a public health practitioner, you need to know the principles that guide community organization. This is to say that what are the things that you always need to be aware of in engaging the community members in addressing these problems. So that's what we are going to look at in this session. So the first principle is that when we are engaging communities, we engage these communities based on what their real needs are. We don't need to create problems and then actually address the problems. So that this is basically to say that the community should see the problems themselves. They should be playing an important part in identifying the problems or the issues such that they can collectively respond. But if we think of interventions to address problems in the community that the community does not think are actually real problems affecting them, then it could be like we are supplying the interventions. So we are basically saying that with the community organization, it is very important to design interventions based on the community's need, okay, rather than what we think should be done. Okay, so that means that engaging community members in decision making is very important, especially from problem identification up to prioritization of the interventions. Okay, if you do that, then it means that the community members will actually be part of the intervention, and that intervention will basically be meaningful to them, relevant to them, and it will actually be a reflection of their local needs. And eventually, even when you exit the community will continue with what the efforts that have been put in place. And this basically points to what we call local ownership and sustainability. If interventions are imposed on communities, then you run a risk of having these efforts ceasing immediately you are out of the community. So that means that the efforts are not self-sustaining, and you don't want to be in that situation. The second principle is that you should use a holistic, integrated, process-oriented approach. And this lies with the concept to do with the fact that community problems, community obstacles or challenges often are cross-cutting. They affect different components. They are multi-layered. You can have a problem that has an education component, has a health component, has a livelihood component, has a welfare component. Let's just use an example of teenage pregnancy. If a teenager gets pregnant, Of course, it is likely that the teenage pregnant, the girl who is pregnant is likely going to be sent to the boys or to the man's home, and that means that that girl's education is actually going to, it will be halted. Okay, halting that girl's education has implications on her health. Even teenage pregnancy as a concept is a health matter because it is associated with certain risks. But again, also stopping her from continuing with her education risks or puts her in a risk of ending up in poverty. Okay, because education would have provided her with higher chances of greater prospects of getting a well-paying job. And also, in a way, her social welfare will actually also be affected. So that you see that teenage pregnancy as a problem is having impact on education, has impact on health, has impact on livelihood, also social welfare. That also means that addressing the teenage pregnancy problem, you need to have community efforts that are geared to all towards all those components. You can have messages passed toward in schools. You can have messages in. You can have this problem addressed at a community level, community call this. You can have the problem addressed at the level of health administration, community health committees. Okay, you can have this problem addressed by providing livelihood programs. Okay, so this is basically to say that you can have one problem that has many aspects through which the problem can be addressed. Okay, so that means that you don't need to focus on only one aspect. You don't need to, for example, the problem of teenage pregnancy, you look at all these aspects and be able to mitigate them. So if, for example, someone has actually already gotten pregnant, the efforts can be geared to making sure that she actually goes through that process smoothly, and then thereafter, perhaps, provided with the livelihood skills that she can use to be able to fend for herself and be self-sustaining, and also return back to school, working together with schools or with the tertiary institutions or vocational institutions and things like that. So that means that you need to collaborate together with all these different sectors. Community management is the third principle that we are looking at here. Here, the focus should be that the community actually takes responsibility for the success of the interventions that you have. And therefore, if they take responsibility, it means that they are part of the decision-making process, or the decisions are actually made locally and through the life cycle of any given community program. They are involved from planning to execution to ongoing management. And this is very important, especially, for example, if you have a community that has a borehole. Okay, if you engage them on in the planning process, it means they discuss and arrive to a decision where the borehole has to be built. That borehole, the location of that borehole is very important. But how will the borehole be maintained? Is another very important question that needs to be addressed. Do you need to have a select committee consisting of committee members who will make sure that the borehole is always working? Okay, that is very, very, very important, because we have seen several instances where if you have a borehole that has been drilled and it is operating well, after some time, any mechanical issue that arises with the borehole, no one is there to fix the problem, and then it all goes to waste. So empowering communities such that they can take matters into their hands and make sure that such efforts are actually maintained is very important. So you don't make decisions on your own. You basically empower communities to take responsibility and make sure that the interventions are successful. Indigenous, accessible, and affordable and technically feasible interventions. Why is this very important? You don't want to be in a situation where you introduce an intervention that cannot be handled or managed by the community members. So you use techniques or technologies that fall within the capabilities of the community, such that they can actually be able to sustainably manage these efforts of interventions. Empowering them to form leadership committees. This actually ensures that there is accountability. Okay, accountability is very, very, very important. If no one is responsible or accountable for anything, then you're not going to have things moving. So creating local governance structures, local community committees, community-led groups, or if you have a borehole, you have a committee, and there's a chairperson, there's a mobilizer. If there's something that needs to be fixed, the committee members can organize meetings and make resolutions. And if the resolution is, for example, to collect money from the community members to fix the borehole, and then that is basically implemented. That can only happen if you have good leadership structures that are local-based leadership structures. It's very, very important. Like we said earlier on, interventions should touch every sector. Okay, so don't think in terms of isolation, where you think the problem is teenage pregnancy, it is a health problem. No. So it means that you need to work with partners across, because partners come with their own skills, their own resources, and that means that some partners are actually well placed than others in addressing particular problems. So that means that if you bring all your efforts together, there is a synergy that the impact is actually going to be great. So look for stakeholders or partners that are actually going to help you in addressing that issue. You can have community members, you can have NGOs, local organizations, community-based organizations, local government, and other stakeholders, such that they can bring all their ideas together and address the challenge that you have. Be mindful of the involvement of women and men in these interventions, and we know that the women and women and men bring unique perspectives to community efforts. So when you're choosing, for example, leadership committees, when you're choosing members to lead certain efforts, always be mindful of the fact that you need to balance the participation of men and women. So that's an issue to do with what we call gender sensitivity. It helps in making sure that the voices of men, women, girls are actually amplified And this is very important, addressing societal inequalities.